Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to another episode of the Growth Winners podcast. Today, probably going to be the best episode I ever release in this early journey of launching a podcast. And I'm beyond super excited to introduce our guest today. And I'm going to pass it right into letting him introduce himself. That way I don't bore you. So without further ado, everybody, listen very closely to this episode and how much value this man is going to bring today. Mr. Ryan Kitchen. Go ahead, Ryan, introduce yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
Thank you. So, my name's Ryan Kitchen, and what I do professionally during the day, I am the program manager of a men's inpatient treatment facility in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So basically like a 3-month rehab for men who are dealing with substance use issues and mental health issues, all kinds of housing, you name it, social support. They have at a significantly, difficult point in their lives where they need a lot of support. So that's kind of my day gig. And I've been doing that for 8 years now. And then on the side, and what brings me to doing stuff like this is I work as a life coach. So it's called Ryan Kitchen Coaching. And that's what the majority of my social media is attached to. And that was just born out of making videos and really just sitting in my car, talking about life, talking about my addiction, talking about my experience. And so from there, I during the day, I work with people with addictions and mental health. Outside of that, I work with pretty much everybody. If you have goals, if you have, something that you want to attain, some emotional experience, mindset, I work with individuals on achieving that. And then I do a lot of stuff like this, public speaking, and try to get my message out there as much as I can, basically just spread the love.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of wraps up what I do.
That's awesome. It's a great intro because for me, when I found you on Instagram, I'm thinking to myself, like, well, I don't really have too much like addiction. I can't really relate to it. Not alcoholic, things like that. So I'm like, I don't know, should I really reach out or should I not? But then, we got to talking the other night and it's just awesome to hear that it's not just that, you can help other people with self-love and mindset and stuff and public speaking and all that stuff. I can't wait to learn more.
Yeah, man,
Real
I'm
quick.
excited.
So for those of you listening, Ryan and I hopped on a phone call the other night and, this is how cool it is to learn and meet new people, from your device, any device you can connect with people in the world. I call him, he sends me his phone number. I call him up and it pops up Ontario. And I'm just like, wait a second. Like, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, and then I kind of made it click to where it's like, wow, here I am shooting a DM to somebody in Ontario who I've never met before. And within 24 hours, here we are hopping on a podcast to spread value. And it's just awesome. I can't even tell you how grateful I am for this opportunity and the things that we're going to talk about. But one thing that we start before every single episode, because I like to create actionable steps listening to the podcast, because I listen to a lot of podcasts and I'll listen to them. And I have this habit where it's like, I'll listen to it and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds nice. But then I never actually do anything about it. So to really get this message to stick, I have the audience repeat 3 things. And I think it'd be kind of cool for you to join in. We'll bounce back and forth. I'll do 2, you'll do 1. So I'll say, repeat after me, I'm confident. And then you say, I'm valuable, and then I'll say I'm a growth winner. Are you cool with that?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
100%.
So here we go. Repeat after me, everybody listening, and then Ryan and then me again, and then we'll get right into it. Ready? I am confident.
I am valuable.
I am a growth winner. So where I like to start more than anything is the backstory. But even before that, I really like this question because I think it's interesting. Describe Ryan Kitchen in 1 word.
Love.
Who love it.
Love.
Yeah. Love that. Especially,
and I'll break that down because I think we have a as we talk more, because there's a perception, or people have kind of a connotation attached to the word love that's might involve romance and things like that. So I'll explain why I would define myself as that, and I define you as that as well, Dennis.
Really?
I define, absolutely, man.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear more about that because,
yeah.
I mean, I definitely have a lot of love in my heart, but I wouldn't choose that for my word. Like for me, I think of other things that come to mind, but because I love asking it, because when you really think about it, we're so many different types of people, right? Like we're entrepreneurs, we're fathers, you and I. So check this out, everybody. Just getting to know him. He's got 2 girls. I've got 2 girls. We hopped on a call the other night. He's a Chiefs fan. I'm a Texans fan.
Yeah.
And it was very cool.
Chiefs Kingdom.
It was cool to remind him that the Texans beat the Chiefs this year. But I don't know. I saw the bracket the other night that if the season ended today, I think it was either we would either have the Chiefs or the Steelers. It was one of the two, but they keep bouncing back and forth. So who knows? We might get you in the first or second round. So rematch Watson and Mahomes. But
yeah, man.
But yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to hear more on that. But let's now that we got that out of the way, let's retrack back to the backstory. Where is there a defining moment? So you're not a plumber, right? You're not a contractor. You're not a bank manager. You're Ryan Kitchen coaching and helping people with addiction and self-love and mindset and all this great stuff. I know, like in everybody's life, there has to be a point that really made that switch? Like, what made you not be a plumber and do what you're doing?
Yeah, actually, I fixed cars. That's what I did as a teenager. I worked on cars because that was a family business. But essentially, I had a really good childhood. I had the typical Canadian childhood, played a lot of hockey. I had a lot of friends. I did well in school up until high school. And then my whole mindset shifted to being popular and to kind of fitting in. And, somewhere along the line at 12, 13, 14, I discovered drugs and alcohol. And that altered my reality, and I loved it. It was like the greatest experience of my entire life. And I got in trouble here and there, but nothing significant throughout my kind of teenage years. The defining moment really for me was when I was about 17 or 18. I had a panic attack for the first time, and it was after a weekend of drinking. And mental health issues, panic, anxiety is very, very closely related to substance use. So I really strongly believe that based on how I was living, I started to create these mental health issues for myself. And the panic attack changed my life because I started having panic attacks all the time. I couldn't, I got to the point where I felt like if I went into the bank, I'd have a panic attack. If I walked down the street, I'd have a panic attack. And it just, go to work and have a panic attack. And then I needed to leave work and school, high school, having panic attacks. And what I discovered pretty quickly after these panic attacks was that alcohol got rid of them. And
ooh, wow.
Yeah. So it was, and I was always, and I mean, I was partying hard. Like I was doing a lot of drugs, a lot of cocaine, a lot of ecstasy. And then on top of that, a lot of drinking. But once I had a panic attack, it was like my whole substance use shifted to mainly drinking. And now I was drinking with a purpose. And
wow.
It became this experience for me where like I would drink to get rid of the panic, drink to get rid of the anxiety, and it would make me feel normal. But the problem was as the alcohol wore off, the anxiety and the panic would return almost tenfold, right? Like it brings it back as your central nervous system, as the substance, as that central nervous system depressant wears off, as alcohol does, it heightens your central nervous system, creating more anxiety. It's kind of like the biology or the science behind it. And so it became a really scary experience for me, man. I mean, from 18 to 19 to 20, I was really just getting by on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I was really unhappy. I was in relationships and trying to be somewhat normal, but I didn't have a driver's license. I was getting people to do things for me, go to the bank, do like basic daily things. And I was always surrounded by a lot of really good people who loved me. Whatever girlfriend I was with at the time would like take care of me. I was always able to attract caretakers into my life. And, but I was miserable. I couldn't do anything myself. I was watching people kind of go off and go to college and really start to make something of themselves. And the way I was conditioned is like, man, this is what I need to do, right? I think it's hard for anyone in their life when they're hitting those late teenage years of those defining moments of, okay, what am I going to do with my life? And I ended up getting pretty sick. I went through the DTs by the time I was 21. So the DTs is, it's the delirium tremens. And that is like really dangerous withdrawal from alcohol. So if you picture like, usually you don't see this type of stuff in mainstream media, you'd be more likely to see what the media would term as like a junkie, a crackhead, someone
Mm-hmm.
addicted to opiates going through like the sweats and the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's like when you withdraw from alcohol. In fact, alcohol is the only one that can actually kill you
Wow.
in that withdrawal. So you can have seizures, all kinds of stuff. So these were hospital stays for me. And my family, who were amazing, um, really started to see the struggle that I was having. And I think it's really important to note, like, my problem wasn't when I was drinking. That's when I felt normal. My problem was when
Wow.
the alcohol was wearing off.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you talked to me when I was completely sober, you would think there was something significantly wrong with me. And I would end up in the hospital, and I'd be sitting there with my mom, and I would just be like bawling my eyes out saying, I just want to be normal. I just want to be normal. I just want to be normal and not experience this anxiety. And those few years from 21 to 23, just misery and self-imposed, right? Like, I think I was very stuck in a victim mindset with my mental health issues and with my addiction, that like, this is unfair. Why is this happening to me? And that just perpetuated more of my substance use and really perpetuated more of inaction and
Mm-hmm.
feeling sorry for myself. And I would just kind of drink and cry on a daily basis. And what ended up happening was, when I was 23, I thought I was going through the DTs again. And I woke up I would break down, I'd cry to my parents, and I'd say, I've been drinking. They wouldn't know, because I was drinking about a 60 of vodka a day from morning to night. Um,
Wow.
just steadily, you know what I
Like
mean?
it
So
was
I wasn't like,
natural.
yeah, so I wasn't like pounding back shots. I was just drinking to feel normal. And so I ended up breaking down, and my parents took me to the hospital. I woke up 3 weeks later in critical care and found out that I had pancreatitis, and found out that, these last 3 weeks consisted of organ failure, of my parents having to say goodbye to me, of me basically clinging on to my life. And, pretty significant thing to happen.
I don't mean to
And
sorry, I don't mean to cut you
yeah, go
off.
ahead.
I literally, what you just said, I literally just got chills.
Yeah, man.
Unbelievable. Sorry, keep
It
going.
was
Wow.
it was wild. And I was in the hospital for a total of 10 weeks. And it was like, that hopelessness that I felt over those last couple years was always this hopelessness of, I will never be normal. I will never be able to have relationships, get married, have kids, have a career. I will never be able to do these things because I can't even walk out my front door. And I would go through these things. Like, I was in the hospital that time for 10 weeks, and everyone in my life would see me go through this. And like I said, I had good people in my life, and they'd think, for sure he's done. And I would get out of I got out of the hospital after that 10 weeks. And within 4 days, that the return of the anxiety, the return of the hopelessness, I was drinking again. And they told me
Oh,
straight up, like, if you drink, you will die. You're killing yourself. Pancreatitis, especially when people get it at a young age from drinking like I did, it kills a lot of people. And I did significant damage. Like, I think I was 25. A couple of years sober when I got diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, which is a direct result of the drinking that I did and the impact that had on my pancreas.
mm-hmm.
So I ended up in the hospital, in and out a couple of times. And something happened for me. I ended up in detox. My parents took me to detox, kicking and screaming. And I was in and out of the hospital in detox for a few months. And I was trying to get professional treatment. I was trying to get into a treatment facility like where I work now. But because of these health issues, this pancreas thing, I mean, I was on like, I could only have broth. I couldn't eat anything because your pancreas releases enzymes that break down food.
Mm-hmm.
So it was crazy, man. And it was like, I was significantly unwell, so I couldn't get into treatment. And I ended up in like peer support groups. I ended up in 12-step groups, and that was the one place I could go for free. And that's kind of what kicked it off for me. And I couldn't get into treatment, so eventually I ended up back in Brantford, Ontario, where I live and where I grew up. And I had amazing family, amazing parents who gave me enough money for a bus pass, and I went to these meetings twice a day, and I connected with people who had been where I had been in different ways. but they loved me, they respected me, and they supported me. And what I found out, you know, I was always like, all throughout teenage years, I always had to be the funny guy, the ladies guy, you know, I always had to be all of these different things that I wasn't. And I'd never been taught as a man that it's okay to be scared, that it's okay to be uncomfortable, that it's okay to be anxious. And when I started to connect with people early on in recovery, I just was so miserable at that point in my life that I said, you know what, screw it. Like, I'm just going to start being real, and I'm going to start being who I am. And slowly, as the days added up, you know, I started to realize that as horrible as I thought I was, as uncomfortable and anxious and scared as I thought I was, and it was really hard early on because the alcohol got rid of the anxiety, right? So I was experiencing this anxiety that's telling me, don't leave your room, don't leave the house, don't do anything, drink. That's what it told me to do, is drink. I just started to gain confidence, and I gained momentum. And, you know, long story short, I really started to challenge my anxiety. People started to ask me to do stuff like share your story. And it's bizarre because for a guy who couldn't even leave his room and talk to people, it turned out I was actually pretty good at communicating and expressing myself. And somewhere along the way, you know, when you ask one word that would describe me, I said love. The other word that came to mind was passion or fire, because somewhere along the way, I found a passion and a fire for life that I went from waking up every day, considering checking out, like thinking about suicide first thing when I would wake up and then drink, to waking up and being excited and being, and so long story short, you know, I ended up going to school. I got a driver's license, went to college. You know, I really did. I got into the field and started working at Wayside House of Hamilton, which is where I work now. And I just got, you know, like I said, it turns out I'm really good at sharing my experience, but also helping others with theirs. And the thing that drives me throughout that is my passion and is my fire. If I lose that for this line of work, I'll go to school and do something else. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a purpose and like, it's almost hard to even put into words that that's kind of what brought me. And then when it comes to my coaching and when it comes to my social media presence, what brought me there was about 3 years ago. I was connecting with a lot of people in recovery. Obviously, I was working in a treatment facility and I was doing very well. Like, I moved up, like I said, I'm the program manager there now. And, you know, I've built a lot of relationships and with a lot of respectable people, and I've done very well in that field. But that passion and that fire to share, that passion and that fire to connect beyond recovery, I started making videos and I started to connect. I always thought I was like eternally unique as an alcoholic and an addict, which was just another way to victimize myself. When I started to open up to people, everybody goes through and feels the way that I felt, this spiritual idea, this void that is conditioned within us that tells us who we are is not okay. And that I need people, places, and things. And that's what I learned in my journey. You know, I had my first daughter. I got my career. I made money. I got a nice car. I did all these things. There was still something missing. And that's when I went further into this spiritual malady and this idea. And when I say I am love and I am whole and you are love and you are whole, because underneath all of that conditioning, there is the truth of who I am. And I've always been that. I've just convinced myself otherwise with what I've been taught by society, if that makes sense. And that's where the, like, I am love comes in.
That makes so much sense. Like I said, I just got chills. That's unbelievable. Like that. What a story first, but secondly, like, I give you so much credit. And I honestly, I don't even, I'm admiring how much you're willing to share your story like that. Like, I feel like so many people have so-called skeletons in their closet that they keep in there, and they're hiding because of what you had said, like the social, you know, influence of other people. What would they think? Trying to impress other people, you know, or people just not knowing your true colors, and they end up drinking, or they end up into hanging out with people that they shouldn't be hanging out with, or any situation. But kudos, like, I'm mind blown right now, man. That's such a powerful story that, yeah, you need to continue to keep sharing that. That's why I'm so grateful to have you on, so that my audience can get to know you and just hear that, because that literally, I've never experienced anything like that. I literally just got chills by listening to that. It's unbelievable, because I'm not going to lie, I can relate to parts of that story where I've always felt, so I have a lot of siblings. I'm the second youngest, and I've always felt that I have had to work a lot harder than them to get my parents' attention, to get any attention, honestly. And just my entire life, that's something that I always struggled with. I didn't really resort to anything other than just trying to prove everybody wrong, right? Like, I kept feeling like, I'm going to show the world, and I'm just going to keep working harder and harder and harder. And I was striving for attention that I then realized, like, why am I doing this anymore? Right. Like, I felt burnt out, and I'm not going to say that it's like perfect right now, but I'm starting. It's probably within the past 6 to maybe 8 months, I've really, really spent a lot of time internally. And I love that you had said that, love is such a great word, but I really have tried to look and just block out the noise. For you to share your story like that, that's so admirable, because again, like I said, not many people are willing to share that part of their life. If you've got, only a select few of people, I would say that, or I guess you could put them into categories of, like, you either bury that like within yourself and wait, and it beats you, or you just open up. And it's just so crazy to hear that. What I have a question on is, you said growing up, and I can relate. I had great parents growing up, great family. We were in a, I have no complaints about my childhood, but for your childhood, you said you had a nice family, right? You had lots of friends, everything was great. Where do you think in your journey, I know you said you were striving for popularity and stuff, but starving for attention and anything that I had just said about my own story, was there ever a point that you were doing it for somebody else other than yourself? Like to get into that stuff, like what void, like I saw on your YouTube, the void, I want to get to that next. What void were you trying to fill if you essentially had everything going for you, it sounds like?
Yeah, you know what? It's almost an endless question, because a lot of the people that I work with, and coach on the side of what I do. So I have these men who are in their first few months of recovery, going through significant challenges, been through horrible traumas, abuse, all different kinds of stuff. And then I have people that I work with that I coach that are married with kids and the white picket fence. They're millionaires. They're doing incredible in their lives, but something is still missing. So basically, the way I sum up that void is, there wasn't like when I look back at it, and I've gone back really far in my experience and kind of looked at this stuff. When I was in grade 1, there was a book club, right? There was kind of like, you read a book, you get a star type of deal. And there was a big board. And I don't know why. I don't know where I learned it. But I was lying about reading books so I could get stars. And
I feel like I'd do the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And a lot of kids would, like, my daughters are 8 and 4. They're my 4-year-olds in junior kindergarten. There are kids already at that age who are making fun of other kids for what they look like, for what they're wearing. And it's not even that anybody consciously taught that to them. I don't think that they saw that necessarily consciously. They may have had, poor parenting or whatever the case may be. But I think the way our society is set up, it's just naturally seeps into our system. So as I grow up, as I watch TV, as I listen to the news, as I compete in sports, as I go to school, as I get stars or get Fs, what I learned very quickly is that it's a very competitive society. And no matter how great I am, I will never be as good as this person, or, and then you start to compare yourself. So I'm better than that person because they got 19 out of 20 and I got 20 out of 20. Or I'm better than that person because I can run faster than them, but I'm not as good as that person because I can't run as fast as them. And, nobody ever sat us down in school and said, okay, today for the next hour, or even did this for like once a week for the whole year, and just said, I want you guys to know that who you are, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your sex, regardless of how well you can read or how well you can speak, or what kind of shoes or what kind of shirt you're wearing. You are all equal. You are all divine. You are all beautiful, and you are all perfect just the way you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that void that is created within me is something that I'm taught.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even something at that point in my life that I'm consciously consuming myself with.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I learned in recovery. It's something that I learned once I stopped drinking. Now I'm seeking. And I basically learned it in my first few years of recovery, where I build this life. I learned to manage my anxiety, still struggle, obviously, and still do to this day, 10 years into recovery. But basically, like, I attained everything I'm supposed to attain,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still on this roller coaster of ups and downs. And one of the examples I like to use is Mondays, right? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people hate Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to look at the responsibility that I have in that. So
Mm-hmm.
if I hate Monday, I am responsible for that. I'm making a conscious decision based off of conditioning and based off of subconscious conditioning that 1/7 of my life sucks.
Yep.
1/7 of my life.
It's so funny you bring that up. I put that on Instagram, like, I don't know, maybe a year ago. So you'd have to scroll forever to find it. But I put that on Instagram before. I said, if you hate Mondays, then you need to like get rewired, because it was something like that, because life's too short to be happy 6 days a week. Like, if you think about it, it's so huge. And you nailed it though, because you always have to, like, I guess, examine why. People hate Mondays because the world hates Mondays. They look forward to Fridays because that's what the world's doing. Like, it's these movements, it's these social conditioning.
Or they're working a job, or they're doing something they don't want to do as a means to an end.
Yep. I'm telling you, like,
it's an endless journey, man. And
I look so forward to Mondays. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if you look at that idea, right? So from 18 to 60, 65, you're working a career that you hate. I mean, that's a large part of your life. And that's a lot of time to waste doing something that you don't love to do. And people will do things to make money because they think money is going to make them happy. And it totally can. But the way to build abundance, the way to create financial abundance in your life, is to do something that you love and be happy doing something. You will create your best work from that. So the two lies to this void is, for me, like, and I call it a spiritual malady, right? So the first one is that people, places, and things will bring me happiness, and they will. So my kids, everything outside of me, if you create the perfect experience, it will bring you happiness, but it's always temporary. And there's always going to be something, right? So if you're struggling, if you buy a fancy car, then you're going to struggle financially because you bought the fancy car. If you don't buy the fancy car and you buy a car you don't like, and then you're going to be fine financially, but you're going to be stressed because you're driving a car that you don't like. Yeah. So that's like what I started to discover. That first thing is, I'm responsible for my experience. And then beyond that, recognizing the lie that the reason I'm seeking things is because I was taught that who I am is not perfect and amazing and whole just the way I am. So that doesn't mean that I don't want to be a better version of myself. That doesn't mean that I don't constantly strive to improve who I am. But that means I have everything I need right now. And when I come from that place, I don't focus on what I'm not getting or getting from people, places, and things. I focus on what am I bringing to the world. So if I am love, share love, man. That's who I am. And as you said, just because you're aware of like this idea that you had of being a lost child, if you will, right, doesn't mean you don't still struggle with it. Right. So every single day, even though I'm consciously aware of this, my mind and my conditioning is telling me, you need this, you need that. You're struggling here financially. You're struggling, you need to fix this in your relationship, or this employment is no good and you need to go work here. And so it's like that constant. Every single day, my primary goal is to connect with that wholeness and then come from changing my world from inside out, as opposed to always changing everything outside of me.
Right. Dude, I love that. I've been following so there's so much information out there. You almost never know what to believe. Sometimes you're listening to the speaker and he's like, you need to hustle and grind. And the next person says, be patient and wait for it. Right. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the advice out there, there's so much, but the one quote that I live by, well, there's a bunch, but the one that really sticks out is to control what you can control. And for me, I used to, and still do, everybody's guilty of it, but blaming, like excuses. Like for me to control what I can control, I never thought that I was a negative person. I never thought that I blamed others. I always thought like, well, that's just the way the world is. You know, the reason we're having a bad month in business, the reason I never have enough time with my family, the reason I don't have the things I want is because we're busy at work, or it's because, you know, he said, it's all this excuse and blaming. Accountability is so huge and important because you have to ask more than like the face value of the question to me. Like that's kind of what I've been thinking forever is like, the world is face value. What you see on TV is face value. What you hear, what you scroll through your social media, you're going to get what everybody I mean, think about it. You got like what, I don't know, a couple billion. I forget how many billions of users are on Instagram, and you're scrolling through. Those are billions of opinions that you either choose to listen to and abide by, or you stay rooted and grounded to your own. But when you're seeing it on TV, you're seeing it on social media, you're seeing it in person, in the newspaper, you know, your coworkers are talking about it, etc. That's your environment now. And when your
It's
environment
seeping
is,
into you.
you know, and I think that everything is just, now think about it at the age of 4 years old and 8 years old, like your
Yep.
girls, mine are 3 and 5. And it sounds so insensitive, but I was genuinely nervous with my 5-year-old going into kindergarten just because I'm losing control. You know what I mean? Like you're just praying. Like, I hope the other girls are nice. I hope they all play right. Like,
Yeah.
because you're losing
It's
control, you just
scary.
got to trust, you know, and nothing against like the school program or anything like that. But these kids these days filling that void at such a young age, everybody is preconceived, the way that they're raised, the way that their parents, you know, what they taught was valuable and what's not. Something I've always taught, I haven't told my kids this yet, but something I've always thought in kids is like racism. When I see all the racism stuff going around the media, I find it so troubling simply because think about a baby that speaks Spanish, that speaks English, that, you know, wants to be a doctor, wants to be whatever, like when they grow up, it's all preconceived. So you can't sit there and say that we're born racist. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
taught.
Yeah.
That's what you've been fed to believe. And that goes for 10 billion more examples that when you grow up, and this is kind of where I feel like I'm at in my life right now. I feel like I'm at a point where I don't want to say that I've been lied to, but I feel like I haven't had the chance, or I've been blaming that I'm not where I want to be because of all these other things. It's all the things that I thought was controlling my life, where I've just now at the age of 26, I'm just now starting to kind of, well, probably the past 8 months, like I said, I'm starting to truly realize like you have control, Dennis. Like you have
Yeah.
to choose to have control, you know? And the way that I messaged you is because I started setting a goal. I started doing these daily habits. And one of my daily habits was to connect with more people so I can get
Yeah.
around like-minded people. That's how we met. Like
Yeah.
this now created a connection that never would have existed had I not chosen. You know what I mean? Like, so the power of choice is so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to touch on that, right? When you
Mhm.
talk about the blaming and the conditioning, you know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, I
Mhm.
find in this world. And one of my favorite quotes or sayings from someone is from Albert Einstein, who's super scientific guy, but said the most important decision you ever have to make is, do I live in a hostile universe or a friendly universe? Now, it's very easy for us to look at our lives and to look at society and see negativity. And in my opinion, people are negative more often than they are positive. And I think, you know, I read a study, I think it was through Harvard, about self-talk. And our thoughts create our experience, right? Like the
Mhm.
placebo effect, you can give someone a water pill, tell them it's Tylenol, and it will get rid of their headache if they believe it. And
Mhm.
so we have 80,000 self-talk a day, and 75% of those are negative, the
Right.
way we're conditioned.
Mhm.
So it's crazy because, you know, my kid, okay, I got a 4-year-old, she wants a Kinder Egg. We're going in, you know, some store, and she says, can I have a Kinder Egg? You know, can she have a Kinder Egg? Sure, have a Kinder Egg, right? Next
Mhm.
time we're in that store, you know, through no fault of anybody's, if she asks for that Kinder Egg and I say no, she's going to have a meltdown
Mhm.
and have to learn the hard way that, you know, you don't always get what you want. And so I find with our society, I find with everything, you can look at it and you can see the worst aspects of it. But what I really consciously try to do is take responsibility and understand, okay, that conditioning that I received growing up, I wasn't capable at 10 years old, at 16 years old. Maybe I was at 16 years old because I in the past couple of years, I worked with a 17-year-old and I worked with him on this stuff. I coached him on this stuff, totally changed his life, thought systems, everything. So maybe I was at 16, but I think now as an adult, it's even easy to look at the conditioning I received and say, this is unfair that I received this horrible conditioning. Well, absolutely. Life is unfair. I'm sorry, but it's unfair. And that's just the way it is. I have to take responsibility. So I was absolutely lied to, but I'm responsible for buying into those lies.
Yes.
So that's not to say like, as a child, if you went through abuse or something bad happened to you, that's not your fault. Right? It's not my fault that I believe these lies. It's not my fault that I lied to be liked. It's not my fault that, all these things occurred, but it's 100% my responsibility if I'm going to change it, if I'm going to do something about it. And so I find, I think a lot of people are living their lives looking to get offended. And it's easy, man. It's so easy because every single day someone is saying or doing something that they shouldn't have said. And so you see these arguments sprout up all over social media, and significant things like the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. That's crazy, man. I can lose myself. I can get into those articles and lose myself and argue with people about it and the whole 9 yards. But, there's a saying that I learned from a spiritual program that I practice is, would I rather be right or would I rather be happy?
Yes.
So I have to focus on, what do I want to create? And for me, I want to create a beautiful experience. I want to enjoy my life. I want to be content. I want to bring value to your life. I want to bring value to others' lives. And I want to bring value, of course, to my family and to my kids, and support them and love them and accept them and my partner for who they are. So that stuff for me is hard enough as it is. Like I have to really try hard to be a good employee and be a good partner and be a good father. These things just don't come naturally for me. Personal growth for me is a daily grind and a daily hustle, and helping people is a daily hustle. So realistically, I don't have time to get caught up in those arguments of, it's kind of like us being sports fans, right? I don't know about you, man, but the Chiefs are playing the Pats this weekend, and we got lots of Pats fans in Canada. I can very quickly get into an argument with a Pats fan, and I can get super like just rage over something that really has you nothing to do with me, right? I'm a fan of this. Exactly.
Control what you can control. That's for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the Serenity Prayer? So this is a prayer in recovery. And so it goes like this. It says, God or source, whatever you want to call it, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. So change the things that I'm able to change, and then have the wisdom to know the difference. And for me, that last line, the wisdom to know the difference, is the most powerful piece, because I can't change people, places, and things. I can obviously have an influence on them, but what I can always change is my perception. And like Einstein said, do I live in a hostile universe or do I live in a friendly universe? I can always hop on my morning commute and challenge myself to enjoy that experience. We were talking before we started about like going to the dentist and being in traffic and, these things that we have learned to hate, right? And, sitting at a red light, waiting in a long line, whatever the case may be. And one of the things that I challenge myself to do is, can I experience peace? Can I experience contentment in this moment? And you find that what you find, as you said, with your mind, when you take responsibility, like life is a playground, man. So the economy, I don't know how great the economy is in the States, but here in Canada, we're constantly taught how horrible it is. The amount of money people make versus the housing cost and all that. And these are factual things, right? But just because the general economy sucks doesn't mean that my personal economy sucks. My personal economy is thriving. And so that's where we rise up. That's where, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I rise up and I work with people to rise up out of those ideas and out of those limitations to create whatever it is you want to create. And when you recognize that it's based off of your thoughts, and then follow those thoughts with action and habits and the stuff that you were saying that you do, life's a playground, man. You can create whatever you want to create. This is why few people are successful. There's always like that 1%, right? And you can talk about capitalism and taking advantage of people and all that, but when you look at history and people who've done well, even in movements like Martin Luther King Jr., he just refused to be held down, and he approached a very challenging situation with love and passion. And he created an experience that he wanted to create. Whether he saw the outcome he wanted to see, he obviously is a guy that we'll be talking about for, ever.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's I love the taking accountability, taking responsibility. Then what do you want to do with that? And you can do anything. You don't have to be a philanthropist. You can be laying bricks, or you can be cleaning bathrooms. You can do whatever you want to do. It's like when you go into a coffee shop, you know how some people are just miserable when they get you your coffee, but then there's people, you'll get that person, whether it's a teenager or a middle-aged person or whatever, and they're just loving it. They're in that flow. They're in that zone. So it's not based on necessarily what you're doing. It's based on your mindset and your attitude towards it.
To make decisions on what you really, truly, genuinely want, it's often overlooked, and you got to remember to take, don't take it for granted, because it's powerful, and it's a blessing, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a cool experience going into a college, and I spoke at a college, and they said, I want you to come in. And one of the cool things, and when I talk about creating abundance and wealth and this kind of stuff, like getting paid to share my story was just like mind numbing to me. And the amount of money that people pay to work with me on the side, it's just crazy. Or it was crazy when I started. It was like a foreign experience for me. And I go into this college, and they're like, okay, we're going to pay you. We want you to come in. We want you to share your story. And I walk in there, and it's a small group. It's a small room of students. And something just hit me in that moment, and I could tell, like, they were kind of looking at me like, what's this guy going to bring? And it was kind of a careers thing for them. It was like, we want you to talk about how you built a career for yourself, regardless of what you were going through. And I said, okay, I'm going to be with you guys for the next hour. I just kind of like shut down this idea that I was going to tell my story. And I did tell my story, but how I started is I said, I'm going to be with you guys for an hour. And I want you to get the most value from this hour. It's kind of what I say when I work with my coaching clients. What do you want? What would you like to get from this? Because I see some of you guys aren't interested. Some of you guys are kind of rolling your eyes, and I'm just another speaker. I'm probably, the 10th speaker you've seen since you started this college course. What would you like to experience from this? And they started to perk up, and they started to say what it is that they wanted. And so even that, like, I find that is so often, even as a business owner and stuff like that, right? It's like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's go ask them. Let's go respect the employees at Chick-fil-A or the front line and say, what would you guys like to do? How can we make this experience good for you? And then obviously, do our best to make that happen. And I always find that to be incredible when you ask people what they want and they really think about it. It's almost like people haven't even asked themselves that. And I just had such an incredible experience when they said, here's what I want to do in my life. And I said, okay, perfect. I think I can help motivate you guys. I think I can help inspire you guys. And if something doesn't make sense, or you want to ask a question, just toss your hand up and I will stop speaking and I will answer your question.
Yeah.
And, I find when it comes to supporting people, when it comes to working with people, and really just loving people, right? And connecting with the love of who people are, safety and respect, like, acknowledging that you matter, your opinion matters. I'm not here talking at you. Without your audience, there is no podcast. So we're having this conversation, but it's kind of like the old adage of, if a tree falls in the middle of woods, but no one's there, no one's around, doesn't make a noise, right? So you and I know for me, when I have these conversations, I get fired up, I get motivated, I get inspired. So I'm getting value from this, you're getting value from this. But when it comes to the audience, it's really up to them on how does this apply to me. And so that for me, even with what you're doing now with your podcasts and stuff, I always find it interesting, the art of just connecting with people and making people feel valued, making people feel respected, making people feel safe, and giving something that can help them, right? Whatever that is.
Yeah, I can totally jump in on that with I never know how to pronounce this word. It's reciprocity or whatever.
Oh yeah, reciprocity.
Reciprocity. I can literally never pronounce it.
Reciprocation.
Yeah, reciprocation.
Yeah, yeah.
Reciprocity.
Giving is receiving.
Yes.
Receiving is giving.
Exactly. So like we are in, and I was just telling my wife this last night because I was reading. It's funny, everybody listening, we're reading the same book right now. I don't even know the title. How to Win Friends and Influence People, or vice versa. I forget. But it's a great book so far. I'm on chapter I think 6 so far. How about you? How far are you?
I'm at the very beginning of it. So what I do when I read books, just to throw this out there real quick, is practice. What I'll do is I'll take it in. And one of my problems is I've always got like 5 on the go at a time. And I just got Kindle on my phone, right? So I can flip back and forth. So I'm in those first few chapters when it focuses on, it's not helpful to punish and criticize people.
Yes,
it's helpful to love people. It's helpful to give people. So what I try to do is I try to take that in and practice that in my life. So don't spoil the next 4 chapters for me. Or do if you're going to talk about it, man.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to go, was the reciprocity, however you say it, is how like people in the world, when they make decisions, right? Like everybody selfishly wants to ask what's in it for me. But what people don't understand, and what I'm sitting here saying what people don't, what I have struggled with is I always, because I was conditioned, it's like this value proposition of, is it worth it or not? For you, you're much further along than I am in this journey of helping people and getting into mindset and habits. So it's like you had a clear chance when I messaged you to say, well, what's in it for me? Let me check him out. His audience isn't as big as mine. It's probably not worth it. I'm not even going to answer him. People are making those decisions, yes is no, good and bad, every single day.
Absolutely.
And they're judging their life. They're basing their life around these value propositions. So it's like I'm just going to call it the R word. It's literally, I don't know how to say it, but
yeah, that's cool, man.
Reciprocity, whatever. People don't understand. I just learned it in that chapter last night, was that you have to understand what they want. And you just touched base on that, on the whole, what interests them, right? Like, don't worry about what you want when you're trying to get something out of somebody. So when you were speaking, I thought that was so cool, especially if you haven't hit that chapter yet, that you even knew that before reading that part, to really get people thinking about how it can best benefit them, versus yourself.
Absolutely.
Being selfish and having that narrow mind, it keeps you small. And I feel that I've just been so trapped for such a long time. And like you had said about like the world, kind of what you grew up into is all you've ever known. So it's all you're ever going to be. And I started to blame myself, right? Like I blamed myself for pretty much everything, where it's like, now I do. And I don't know, it's such a deep thing. I wrote down real quick because I wanted to touch base on this and slide from this, is mental health, and how you had said growing up, how it's not okay for men to be hurt. It's not okay if you felt guilty for, like, you didn't think it was okay to be doing what you're doing. I want you, if you can, just touch base a little bit on, if you've got past experiences yourself, which I'm sure you do, or some client experiences that you have, on all the men listening right now and myself, reminding them, what advice do you have to really remind them that it is okay to not be Mr. Tough Guy? Because for me, I played sports growing up. I felt like I had to be popular. I felt like I was judged and I had to maintain this status. I was one of the strongest we were a brand spanking new school when I graduated. I was the first graduating class, so there wasn't many to pick from, but I was at the top of the class in like weightlifting and sports and football and baseball. So I felt a lot of pressure to maintain the status where, well, shit, I can't be embarrassed. I'm the guy, right? So I feel like that's played a huge role in my life, where I'm kind of coming out of that shell. But for other people that could probably relate to that as well, what are your thoughts on that, with how important the mental health is of maintaining Mr. Tough Guy and being okay to hurt?
So my go-to strategy for my anxiety, for my panic, for what I was classified as at that point in my life, which was agoraphobic, which is essentially having panic attacks about panic attacks, is to just be genuine and be transparent, right? So if I was anxious right now, I would share that with you. Yeah. If I was up in front of 500 people doing a talk, I'm usually having a panic attack to begin that experience. And that's what I start with. Hey guys, what's up? I'm really anxious right now because I'm very consumed with what you think of me, because I want you to like me. I don't know why. I don't know any of you guys. Obviously, I want the talk to go well and I want to bring value to your life, but I've lived this way my whole life, where I'm consumed with what other people are thinking of me. And when I do that, usually people start laughing, or people, react the way that you reacted, and everybody gets it. And so when I talked about this experience of vulnerability and transparency, nobody, like my parents, my dad did not sit me down and say, listen, don't cry, don't show emotions, don't do this, don't do that. My parents didn't sit me down and do that. It was social. It was literally like the men that I ran with, and the way even women, women expected me to be a certain way and expected me to behave in a certain way. There's kind of that old adage of like, assholes get the girl or whatever. And I was kind of that guy. Like, I was aloof. I could definitely be a jerk and treat people very poorly. And, one of the processes in recovery is like going back and making amends for all that stuff. So you have a lot of conversations that are pretty humbling. And I think that idea for me is like, okay, I was cool when I was 16 and now I'm 33 years old. And what really matters to me, my 8-year-old and my 4-year-old and my partner, I'm probably the biggest loser they know is me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, man, I feel the same way.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No matter, I get a lot of props. I get a lot of love for what I do professionally. And I get a lot of recognition for that. So I get that, positive reinforcement of like being cool or whatever it is. And then I come home and the people that matter most to me, I'm just dad. I'm just, I just am. So when you think of that, it's like, even I remember like going on a date for the first time in recovery, and like, you got to be cool and you got to be all that kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I go on this date and I communicate with this woman and I say, I'm really uncomfortable. I like you. I'm really scared. I haven't done this in a long time sober, and kind of communicated with a woman. And it was phenomenal, man. And so what I learned was like, it's okay to be who I am. And if you want to call me a pussy, if you want to call me a loser, if you want to rip on me for doing that, kind of the dude thing that we can get caught up in. And I can get caught up in that. I'm not coming from my iron throne of like, I'm this perfect, sensitive guy.
Right.
If I'm sitting in a room full of men and I want to cry, I'm holding back. Like, my conditioning is so powerful. My ego is so powerful that it's telling me don't put yourself in that situation. But I've also gotten to a point where I've become very, very comfortable with who I am, because at the end of the day, other people's opinions of me are really none of my business. And not when we talk about things you can control, I can't control that. And my life, when I look at it, if I take a step back and I look at my experience of, being more genuine with my emotions and building stronger relationships with family, and, trying harder and sharing my feelings with other men and connecting with other men in ways that I didn't, my life has gone significantly better. And I don't, that idea of being cool, it's almost like I experienced that, but it's genuine. It's not a fake thing. I'm not like I'm not like a macho cool guy that's running his mouth and I think it's really hard with social media, because I think it's very easy for us to project perfection or the greatest parts of ourselves. And so, I think it'll be a lifetime journey for me, just like personal growth, of like chipping away at that ego and being the most genuine version of myself. And for me, the way that I can encourage that is to be real with men and to be vulnerable with men. Some of the biggest, toughest guys who have been through some crazy, crazy things where they needed to be that to survive, they break down hard. And they just want love. They just want acceptance. They just want respect. And, it's just life's too short to play
Mm-hmm.
that game for me.
Right.
So I try to encourage men. And we do that work at Wayside House when we work with men in recovery. A lot of the programming that we do is male specific to focus on the conditioning that we receive as men and the impact that has. Because if you're given the message of don't ask for help, be the man, don't talk about your feelings, then you come into recovery or some sort of personal growth. What do you
Right.
need to do? You need to ask for help. You need to talk about your feelings. You need to basically do the exact opposite of everything you've ever learned. So at the end of the day, when it comes to achieving my goals and living the life that I want to do, I recognize I had to do the exact opposite of all that stuff.
Dude, that's crazy. And it's so
Yeah.
powerful. And when you hear something once, it's almost like there's not much weight to it. So it's like you have to hear it over and over and over
Over
again.
and over again.
And
Absolutely.
so everybody that's listening right now might, again, that's the whole thing about taking action on the podcast is I don't want this just to go in and out of your ears. I want these people and even myself,
To
I'm
do
listening to
something,
every
yeah.
single word you're saying. It's like, it's so powerful. I've already got some notes on some big takeaways. But really quick, just to end that, then I'll try to wrap this up here. By the way, like I love everything that we've talked about. Every topic is so important, and it's like, I don't know, I'm still super grateful.
I could do this for, you could
Oh
just
yeah.
fire out a word and it would be like, I can tell you and I would
Yeah.
just talk about this stuff
Oh
for
yeah.
hours. So
Well, and I feel like, and you could probably relate to this, you almost feel as if it's part of your identity now that you feel, and I'm in the very early stages of talking about this stuff and mental health and mindset and habits because I never really had it. Like I told you, I felt burnt out for like literally from probably 16 to maybe 23, 24, because I'm 26 now. Like there was a long stretch where I told you I felt as if I was trying to prove something to the world. I felt so burnt out because it's like I'm out to get mine, where I lost touch. I didn't lose touch. I didn't have any touch with who I really was. I didn't know who the hell I really was. I kept trying to fulfill what I thought society thought I was. I thought like, okay, you know, my dad's an entrepreneur. My brother played sports, so I'm going to play sports. I'm going to start my own business. You know, that's how I was raised. That's what we do as men in our family, and I'm going to be so much better than them. And like I was fighting the wrong battle.
yeah.
And it's
And a lot of people do that and they get to that place where they're the CEO, they have the perfect family, they got the $50 million and they're 50 years old or 60 years old or 30 years old and they're going, well, what's next? What's next?
That's
Right?
why
It's crazy.
That's
And
why
then
I'm
they
so
recognize, you see like celebrities killing themselves. If you ever throw on like Oprah show masterclass, you'll see celebrities who have had it all and are miserable because they recognize that something more is needed for a purposeful, good life.
I have a video on my phone. I didn't put it on Instagram yet, but I recorded it the other day. Yeah, there was a running back for the Raiders, battling depression, killed himself, suicide, 27 years
Yeah.
old. You were in the NFL. I say in the video, I should probably just play it, but I don't know what their base salary is, but let's just call it $1 million. I don't know, 500,000. You have a ton of money, way more than the average American or Canadian. And you killed yourself because you were battling depression. Because, I mean, so there is no stopping point, and that's what I'm
No.
starting to understand, you know, like, yeah, give yourself everything in the world that you want. That dopamine and everything, you're going to want more and stuff. So you've got to create it from the inside. It's something I'm learning literally, and I'm in the process of. And with the men thing or the male, like the being the alpha male and being the best and being competitive, that testosterone levels and stuff, you know, that is, I feel, amplified in males, but like even females and stuff, any human really, I wrote these 3 things down, is everybody in the world wants to feel like they're enough. They want to feel important, and they want others to feel like they get me. And for me, what I think created so much stress and burnout, and, you know, I just got tired of trying to prove the world wrong or prove myself right. I felt like I had this craving and desire for the world to get me. Like, and again with the whole blaming thing I told you, I don't understand. I'm working so hard. I'm working a lot of hours. I'm doing everything everybody ever told me to do. Why am I not happy? Why am I feeling stressed out of my mind? You know? And I could go another hour talking about the choices on top of that and more conditioning. But I want to end really quick with one last question, and then we're going to hit the episode challenge mantra, and then we'll close it out. this intrigues me a lot. And I'm sure by now I already know that you're going to be honest because you have nothing to hide. And I admire the shit out of that.
Thank you.
You're drinking. So for me, I learned a lot from you just in this talk about really owning who I am and and putting my flaws out there. Like you had just said, you know, if I was nervous, I told people I'm nervous. If I'm about to speak and I'm having, you know, anxiety, I'm going to tell them that. I am probably going to take that as my biggest takeaway, and I'm going to implement that and start to work on that for myself because
Awesome.
I feel like it's going to help me a lot. So I really thank you for that. With your drinking and drugs and past, do you think that defines you? Or do you still bring that into today's Ryan? Do you feel like there's two identities, or do you think who you were is what created who you are today?
That's a really good question. So the funny thing is who I am, who you see, the physical representation. I'm gonna get I'm gonna get weird on you here.
Go
I'm gonna
for it,
get
man.
real. I'm gonna get real spiritual on you here.
That's what I like. Go ahead.
The physical representation of who you see me as, this 33-year-old Caucasian male, 2 daughters, amazing partner, addictions counselor, life coach, all those other things. That essentially is my ego. That is the physical experience that I am experiencing in this realm. Who I really am is pure unconditional love, is spirit, that will never change. That exists within that. And through meditation, through working with others, through speaking, through entering into that flow state, I enter into that perfect place. One of the things, being an alcoholic or an addict, I'm doing like the quotations off screen,
Dude, I do it all the time.
alcoholic or addict or whatever you want to call it, I really defined myself as that for a long time. You know what I mean? And I don't care. Like, people drink, people use drugs, people do all kinds of stuff. And I have no hate or ill will towards drugs or alcohol. It's not about that for me. I choose to not put substances into my body because they're mood altering and I lose power over my thoughts. And for me, with drinking and drugging, I like it a lot and I just can't control it. It's just part of my experience. So I will always be, throughout my life, I will be shifting. I will be a father. I am a son. I am, a partner. I am a man. I am yada, yada, yada. And the story goes on and on and on. But the best way to sum it up is I am pure unconditional love. And my goal in this physical form is to connect with that and live through that experience and share that into this physical realm as much and as often as I can. And it's very, very hard. So like you said, right, I can read a book, I can listen to a podcast, I can work with a client, and I'm all fired up and I'm like, yeah, man, I just got to be a good person and be unconditional love and share whatever. And then you cut me off in traffic and it's game over. I immediately forget that. My ego kicks in. And so my daily grind, my daily hustle, my daily experience is to connect with that love. And I really like being an entrepreneur. I really like being a counselor. I really like being a speaker. I really like being a father. I really like being a partner. I really like the grind and the challenge of life. And I like the zest of that. And so, that passion and that fire for life and to really live the best possible life I can live exist and enjoy it, right? Like right after this, I'm going to watch the football game, man. I got my, I got my vices. I got my stuff. I don't think I'd ever be able to be the guy who goes up into the mountains by himself because I just have way too many attachments. And so I'm like, spiritually trying to excel in this Western civilization. So I think it's very easy for all of us to define ourselves as the labels that we give ourselves. But it's funny because everyone knew me as an alcoholic and an addict. Then I was like this, wonder boy who had a crazy story and recovered. And then I'm like a year sober, 2 years sober. Nobody really cares anymore. We're like, we get it, dude. You don't drink and use drugs. Like it's cool. And, and then you have your kids and it's about my kids and it's about, so that's a hard question. I asked that question. One of the things I work on with guys early on in recovery is asking the question of who am I? And probably a question I'll be asking and answering for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And out of respect, I think you should, because every
Mm-hmm.
day, like your past, that's why I'm getting at
100%.
drinking. Does it define you? Yeah. Maybe like that's
But
a
man, that
chapter, man. Like,
suffering, I needed that. I
yeah.
needed that. That was all part of, I hated it when I was in it, but suffering and struggling was an absolutely necessary experience for me. And like yesterday, I had a horrible day for whatever reason, no good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Out of my struggles is where I learned the most.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, all that pain that my ego experienced,
Mm-hmm.
necessary. Like you got to go through it, man. You got to go through it for
And
sure.
like guys feel too tough that they feel like they can't be scared. They can't be,
Yeah.
they can't cry. Grown men can't cry. Grown men gotta, put in the
Yeah.
hours and
Yeah.
work. And like we don't allow ourselves to be who we are. And just, I think the thing is like, you can flip the switch and own it though. Like I've learned that about you just listening to you. Like you are not hiding a damn thing in your life, which is just so admirable because there's so many people that I think do. Like people need to hear this and they need to really apply it to their life because it's happening every second. The feeling important and feeling like they're enough and feeling like people get me. I don't know. People aren't willing to get out there. In my opinion, they're not willing to, I guess they're just not willing to do what is right. Like you had said about being right and being happy or whatever. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's right. People are going to do what they
Being
think.
genuine.
Yeah. People think they're going to do what they think the world wants versus what they actually want. But like you had said with people, here we go again, reciprocity, whatever, with the
Yeah.
giving and
Yeah. Yeah.
taking. People aren't worried about you at the moment. Like that's why you had just said, like all your friends were like, okay, great, he recovered, that's cool. Like everyone's so scared getting on stage for speaking. I've never spoke, but for you to like,
It's
anxiety
terrifying.
about to speak,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't even imagine.
But it's amazing. Like
Right.
it's a beautiful to get through that. You know what I mean? To be terrified and push through that fear and come
Mm-hmm.
out on the other side of that is powerful.
What if they judge my outfit? What if, what if
And
my
they
voice,
are.
yeah.
And they are. You know what I mean?
What if my voice cracks? What if they can't hear me?
Yeah.
What if
Yeah.
the audio kicks out? What if
Yeah.
they boot, what if, and like you drive yourself insane. But the truth is, call it 10,000 people in the stands. They're not worried about you the way that you're worried about you. They're worried about themselves, right? Like we're selfish human beings from the start. That's where the survival part of our brain is like, your brain is always working for the shortcuts. It's working for the easiest route. We
Absolutely.
are
Yeah.
wired to have to survive in any situation. It's like, what's the quickest? What's the easiest? What's the
And
fastest?
feel good.
Right.
Right? To
Yep.
avoid that discomfort.
Yeah.
You can discipline yourself and you can, I work with people a lot to discipline themselves and to change that experience. And when you're talking about the vulnerability, like these videos I make and
Mhm.
not hiding things, I'm probably going to die with a significant amount of people's secrets because I get so many messages. I get so many calls from people who share things with me and they say, I've never shared this with anybody.
Wow.
And so that's where
amazing.
like that, yeah, man, that's where like that gift came for me, where people are like, dude, you need to be a counselor. You need to do something. They were telling me this stuff because it was like, for whatever reason, people feel comfortable with it. And so my business essentially is me being me as a
Mhm.
broken, flawed, messed up person. And the difference from today of being broken, flawed, and messed up is like today I'm broken, flawed, and messed up, totally cool with it and constantly working on it.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I was broken, flawed, and messed up, and I thought could never be happy.
Yeah. Are you happy
my
right now?
reaction to it.
Are you happy?
100%, man.
Yeah.
Super content. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love doing this stuff. I can hear my kids shifting around upstairs. There's football on.
Yeah.
I'm pumped. I'm
Yeah.
pumped. So yeah, man. I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna do it again tomorrow. And you know how I said like before I lived with this idea, I would wake up and I would be like I would entertain the idea of checking out or killing myself.
Mhm.
So I really enjoyed doing stuff like this, right?
Mhm.
There was absolutely no prediction ahead of time for me the day before you reached out to me that said, hey, you and Dennis are going to hop on a podcast. That just happened for me. When
Mhm.
I made my first video and somebody reached out and people started to follow me, people started to reach out to me and I saw that I was making an impact. And then it turned into a business. I didn't launch that video with the intention of turning it into a successful business. So I know I'm getting up tomorrow. I know I'm going to work. I'm a very structured, disciplined guy. But outside of that, I have absolutely no idea who might call me, who might reach out to me, what might happen, you know, what kind of day my kids might have at school, what we might do, what kind of funny stuff they might say. Man, life is beautiful. There's so much excitement. And working with others and having these conversations is what reminds me of that, because it's real easy to forget it, for sure.
Would you agree with this, that you more than likely have already hit rock bottom and you're basically essentially living the mindset of the only way to go is up? Is that kind of your mentality?
Yeah, everything's gravy. Everything's gravy.
Like, it's kind of hard. I was gonna say it's kind of hard.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's kind of hard to be unhappy when anything, I would say, you know, is better than where you were before based on your story. It's like everything is blessed. So people, like you had said, people have to get to that point where it's like, okay, enough's enough. I'm tired of this shit, and they go and move forward and move up. Like,
yeah, you would think that, but I will get, you know, I can pop by the coffee shop and order like a tea with 2 milk and 1 sugar, and they forget my 1 sugar, and I will be extremely unhappy about that. Really, and then I have to remind myself, I have to come back to the reality of like, wake up, dummy. Like, and I'm really big on affirmations and stuff like that. So, I mean, I couldn't even walk out my house. So realistically, it should be a blessing that I can walk out my house any given day. But we forget that stuff. And so I'm big on affirmations, big on gratitude. One of the things I always say, you know, we're coming up on the new year. You know, 2019 was the best year of my life, and 2020 is going to be even better. And I've been saying that for the last 6-7 years. I always say I'm in my prime. I'm 33 years old. I'm in my prime. You're 26 years old. You're in your prime. And it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. I haven't, you know, I've had a lot of lows and I've had a lot of highs within the last decade of me changing my life. But there's this underlying contentment and this reality that I understand that I can connect with, and I am perfect. I am whole just the way I am. But it takes work. You know what I mean? Because I can be ungrateful. I can be arrogant. I can be, you know, ridiculous and worry about things that don't matter and all that kind of stuff. So it's helpful for me to have a life that is centered around recovery and personal growth, so that I'm constantly reminded about this stuff, because there's things that I do all the time that are like, you shouldn't be doing that. You know what I mean? So,
I'm definitely the same way. It's how we are. We're like, I think that's just humans, not just you and I talking. I think everybody listening is going to probably nod in their head right now. Like, that's me too. You know, it's who we are. Check this out. I wanted to show you this. Because for me, it's like the environment and the daily habits. That's what, you know, I talk about mindset and daily habits, because you said New Year's coming up. People are going to set New Year's resolutions. They're preconditioned to do it because it's the cool thing to do. And they're going to stop
a couple weeks and then,
because it's not internal, man. It's like it's literally down to a science. That's what society is. So it's like, you shouldn't follow society. Society is broken.
Absolutely.
It's the truth. It's designed for you to fail. But instead of blaming it, you have to outbreak and do it yourself. So I have my alarms. I wake up at 5:45, and if you can see that, if it zooms in.
I can see it, yeah.
It says, gosh, zoom in, stupid. Anyways, it says, I am ready to win, and I repeat that when I wake up, right?
Affirmations.
So then 10 o'clock, it won't zoom. It says, today I am grateful for ?
Boom.
So I'll be at work.
Money.
10 o'clock, stop what I'm doing, literally like detach from what I'm doing or working on, and I answer the question. 1:30. What makes me happy? 1:30.
Oh, amazing, man.
3:30. Smile today with the smiling emoji.
Nice.
And I do this one. This is kind of where the mantra came from. 6 o'clock. I am confident and I am valuable. I literally don't care where I'm at. I'll say it because I force myself to say it out loud, right? Like, I'm not talking about caring what people think about you and stuff. It's like, well, shit, I'm at a party. I'm confident and I am valuable. You know what I mean? Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, I am confident. I am valuable.
Man.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
That's kind of how I feel like who I am. It's like I'm in this breakout moment where it's like,
man, that's amazing because you're actually applying it practically. I get so many people come up to me and they'll be like, man, you know, it's really cool. Like, locally where I live, I've gotten enough exposure that people will recognize me. And they'll come up, you know, I'll get a person come up and they'll say, man, I saw your video on positive affirmations. I absolutely loved it. And you can listen to a video on positive affirmations and it makes you feel amazing. And I'll say, awesome. Like, are you practicing it? Well, no, I'm not practicing it, but that 3 minutes of watching that video made me feel great. Like
Dude.
it made me, and so that's sick that, like, you know, and I think social media gets kicked. You know, everybody gets offended by it. Like I said, there's negative and positive to everything. So with our phones in this age that we live in, man, you can build a system. You can build a system like you have a very easy. I have all my goals in my notes on my phone, and I can look at that whenever I want, goals and strategies of how I'm going to achieve them. And even if you look at like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which is one of the greatest like business books of all time, right? Not just for money, but for personal success. Write down your goals, look at them, remind yourself day in, day out, because God knows where your mind will be at when that alarm goes off.
Yep.
And I read a book, I forget what it was called, but the guy changed his entire life by alerting himself every half hour, what am I grateful for? And that was like the whole basis of the book. It was amazing, incredible.
Yeah.
So that's cool, man. I'm glad you're doing that stuff.
Yeah, man. And I mean, same thing. I've been reading a lot of books and really, you know, I've joined a couple courses and programs. And, you know, again, it's the awareness of what's possible. I kept thinking that this life is just the one that I was handed. I'm in a small town, you know, I'm going to end up making the family proud and, you know, running the family business. And
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm really feeling like for the first time in my life, I'm in a good spot. And we had a Friendsgiving, like 2 weeks ago, and I did the same thing. I asked you, you know, who are you in one word? What I said to them was around the whole table with friends I've been friends with for years. And I said, describe your year in one word. And when it got to me, I said, my word this year is progressive. And because I feel like I have learned so much in 1 year's time. Because like I said, I feel just like I've lived 25 years of just being blindfolded of like, this is the way it is. Now go do it. You know, this is the only option. And it's like taking that mask off. It's like, holy shit, I feel so goddamn free.
The beauty of that is in a year from now, you'll look back at this and feel like you were blindfolded, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's how personal growth works. Like it just keeps going and going. And it's amazing, man. And so that's why I think an open mind, right? Like, yeah, man, get into it and recognize change. And it's beautiful. It's a really good conversation. I really enjoyed this.
Oh,
I hope
absolutely.
that everybody listening finds value from this, right? Or something hits them on some level.
If somebody listens to this and doesn't get value, then they're on the wrong podcast. They need to go, I don't know, listen to more political debates on Facebook or something. Go watch Donald Trump's live.
Good times. God, that stuff's all over Canada news too, man.
Really?
Oh yeah. And everyone's got opinions on it too.
Yeah.
Like everybody wants to argue, right?
Oh yeah.
My ego loves that. Like I can argue. My ego will take the other side, even if I agree with your side, just to challenge it. It's crazy. Crazy.
See, I'm not the best with debates and stuff. I usually like I'll stand up for my opinion, especially if it's on the Texans. It's one thing I'm really adamant on. But like business and mindset and stuff like that, like I get so involved, but then towards the end, it's like I never really want to piss them off, or I'm just like, yeah, you're right. You know, okay. It's like I have my ego. I'd say I have a high ego, but I'm always willing to kind of, you know, throw in the white towel. And I'm just like, all right.
You have better management of it than I do.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
All right, man. I'm going to do an episode challenge. I wrote down notes, but I scribbled. I wrote 3 words, find something outside. Because I remember when we were talking before we hopped on that you're going to run the episode challenge. Just go ahead and repeat what you had said before, because the challenge is amazing, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. So everybody check out Ryan's challenge for the episode challenge here.
All right, guys. So my challenge, as I discussed, I talked about this spiritual malady, and we're constantly seeking people, places, and things in order to make us feel good. So what I want you to challenge yourself to do is the next time you have a craving for something, maybe it can be, you know, a coffee or food or a drink or a cigarette or whatever it is, I want you to challenge yourself to not give in to that craving and to experience that experience and find peace and happiness within it. So the next time you're in traffic and you hate it, I want you to stop and I want you to challenge yourself to experience peace and happiness and contentment within it. Dentist chair. family, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
At Christmas, that stressful family event, I want you to challenge yourself to enjoy that. And I want you to recognize that you can get that peace, get that contentment, get that happiness from within, and it doesn't need to come from something outside of you.
I
That's the
love it.
challenge.
Yeah, I love it,
Yeah.
man. And I don't know when I'm gonna go to the dentist next. I'm gonna apply that to the dentist because, like I said earlier, the
Yeah,
dentist
yeah,
is the number one spot in the world I don't want to be. I don't know
yeah.
why. It's
And be
just,
patient. Be patient. You don't
yeah,
have to get it right. You don't
right.
have to succeed. Give
Hmm.
yourself, but don't give up. Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. You know, people have found peace in crazy, crazy situations. There's many documented crises that people have gone through, and they found peace and contentment within that struggle. So it's doable.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it. Where can people reach out to you? You want to hit your
Uh,
Instagram?
yeah, man, go either on Instagram or on Facebook. You can search Ryan Kitchen Coaching. Even if you put it into Google, you know, on the web, it should pop up Ryan Kitchen Coaching. You want to connect with me, just reach out. You know, I've had a website in the works for like 2 years. I haven't found it necessary because people just message me,
Yeah.
and you know, I answer my messages. I'm not, you know, I'm not like this big famous guy who has someone working their Instagram for them type of deal. So if you want to connect with me, you want to talk to me, you want to hop on a call with me, I always do like a free consult call and have conversations so people can tap into that experience. I got all kinds of videos and stuff out there, and
Yeah.
yeah,
I
just
can
search for
vouch.
Ryan Kitchen Coaching.
I can vouch for that because I'm pretty sure today's Thursday. I pretty sure I reached out on Monday and
Yeah, yeah,
instantly got connected. This dude's awesome, super authentic. Probably my favorite part about you is just how open and willing you are to embrace who you are. It's
appreciate it,
admirable,
man.
man. I'm gonna edit this and I'm gonna publish it. And through this entire process, just listening over to this, I'm just gonna try to really implement what you're doing, you know, for myself, because I've learned a lot just watching you talk, you know, hearing your voice, hearing how you describe things. I'm not just sitting here like, okay, let me get to the next question. I'm like literally taking in, because that's what I like
Yeah,
to do when I
thank
connect
you.
with people on the podcast. It's like I want guests that it's mutual, like the reciprocity, whatever,
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, so
The R word.
bouncing, yeah, the R word, bouncing back and forth. And it's like, I don't want to just talk to you and be done with it, man. Like I made a friend today listening and talking to you,
100%.
and I cannot wait to watch your journey. Like you said, 2020 is going to be even better. I'm super excited to have a long distance seat on Instagram to watch that
Right on,
happen.
man.
And
Appreciate you, brother.
yeah, man, I'm so thankful and grateful for you hopping on today. Real quick, always end with the mantra. So we'll do the same thing if you're down for it again. I'll say I'm confident. You say I'm grateful, or sorry, valuable.
Valuable.
And then
I
I'm a growth
remember it,
winner.
and you don't.
I don't even know my damn mantra. All right, here we go, everybody. Repeat after us. I am confident.
I am valuable.
I am a growth winner. Thank you guys so much for listening. Mr. Ryan Kitchen and I are off. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man.